Hi, I'm Mr. Simons, and in this video, by very popular request, we're going to go through the 2018 New South Wales Economics HSC. For this video, we're just going to focus on the multiple choice, and in future videos, we'll take a look at the short answers and the essays. Now, the multiple choice are particularly tricky, so we're going to go one by one, see if we can sort out what the answers should be. Also, just before we do, there's a link in the description to the actual exam paper and also the answers. So it might be helpful that you can have the questions in front of you as we go through them as well. All right, enough. Okay, let's answer these questions. Okay, so just so you can see that here we are at the 2018 Economics High School Certificate Examination, and it's got all of the pretty typical components you would find. There's section 1, multiple choice, section 2, short answers, and 3 and 4, the essay questions. So let's get stuck into the multis. So what I'm going to do as I go through all of these answers is I'll show you how I would approach them in an exam situation. So what I would underline, what I would highlight, what I would try and work out on the side to make my life a little bit easier. Here we go. All right, the first question. A key objective of decentralized wage determination is to increase. So the first thing I'd like to show you is that whenever I have a direction in these multiple choice questions, up, down, I like to include the arrow. It can be stressful in an exam, so it's very helpful to me to remember what I'm trying to see. And so what I'm trying to see is which of the following will increase because of decentralized wage determination. If I go over here, if I think about this term, what I'm thinking about with decentralized wage determination is that higher wages are linked to growth in productivity, right? It's not the case that everybody gets the same increase in wages. That would be centralized wage determination. So if I look over here, I'm thinking, well, decentralized wages is really to get people to work harder and to produce more. So if I look here, I'm not really concerned about work-life balance with more flexible wages. I'm actually not concerned with equality. What I'm concerned is with, I want wages to be unequal. Yes, I'm all about labor productivity, not really concerned about full-time employment. So the answer for here would be C. Let me just double check. Yep, the answer is C. Let's move on to the next one. The question says here, number 2, from which of the following would a developing economy be most likely to receive funds to build a bridge? Okay, so what we might do is we might get out the highlighter here. So I'm thinking, okay, so a developing economy most likely receive funds to build a bridge. So what I'm going to do is I'll just get out my green pen and I'll say, you know what? The World Bank sounds like a pretty good bet because we know that the World Bank is all about trying to reduce poverty, help infrastructure in developing economies. So that seems pretty good. World Trade Organization, this isn't really a trade issue. This is an aid issue, giving money issue. IMF, we're not really talking about a financial bailout. We're talking about funding vital infrastructure. OECD, no one's sitting around in their office doing research on this one. So our answer would be the World Bank. Okay, question 3 took me a little bit of time to try and work out. So it says the value of trade between countries A and B increases. So what I might do is I might just stop my thinking there and I say, okay, so if we look at, so trade between countries A and B is increasing. And then it says, while the value of trade between countries A and C decreases. All other things being equal, which these questions love to say, this most likely occurred because country A All right, before we even go into these categories, if we think about this situation here, what it seems most likely is that these countries have done something to increase trade with each other. So one possible option here is that these two countries, look at this terrible D, isn't that awful? So that it's likely that these countries have signed some kind of trade agreement in which they will increase trade with each other, but A is not going to do much more with country C. So what we can see is, remember, we're looking at country A, what it's doing. Country A implemented a free trade agreement with country B. I can see the merits of that. Implemented a free trade agreement with country C. No, if they did, they're doing it wrong because trade is decreasing between them. Raised import tariffs on both country B and C. Not correct, because you see trade is actually increased with country B. Reduced import tariffs on country B and C, not necessarily because trade is increased between A and C. So answer to 3 will be A. Let me just double check with Nessa. Yep, we're good. 3 is A. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So here we are at question 4, and it says a reduction. And remember, my idea to you is if I see reduction or increase, I'm going to put an arrow to try and get my thinking correct. A reduction in a country's company tax rate is most likely to do what? So I might go over here and I say, okay, what I'm thinking about, let me give an example. Let's say that Australia reduces its company tax rate. And let's highlight this just because it's pretty important in the context of this question. If Australia reduces company tax, as a result, the theory goes, there will be more companies, CO in this instance is companies, more companies wanting to actually be in Australia because they pay lower tax rates. So if I think about it here, and I go over to my possible answers, if I reduce the company tax rate, more people are going to want to invest in Australia. So rather than depreciate, actually it's going to appreciate because more companies will want to be in Australia, buy Australian dollars, appreciate the currency. Will it reduce the profitability of the country's firms? No, it will increase the profitability, because they will be able to keep more of their profits. Will it have anything to do with frictional unemployment? Probably not. Probably a red herring here. Okay, so it will increase FDI because if taxes are lower, more companies want to be in that country because they're going to keep more of their profits. And we've got D here. Nessa, what do you say? You also say D. So I might give myself a tick there and feel good about myself so far. 4 down, 16 to go. Okay, here we are at question 5. If you've seen previous videos with me, you know my approach with these questions. When I've got these double-barreled answer categories, what I try and do is I try and choose the easiest one to look at first. So I'm not trying to do both things at the same time. So let's look at the wording of the question, and then I'll say, okay, I reckon we could look at this column first. So it says, a country's central bank wishes to improve the international competitiveness of the country's exports. Okay, before I go into the next part of the question, let's give myself a couple of clues. So let's say that the RBA, right, wishes to improve the international competitiveness of Australia's exports. So what that essentially means is it would like to make exports cheaper. In order to do that, it's going to try and depreciate the currency, so exports are cheaper in foreign currency terms. So then the question asks us which combination of actions by the central bank is most likely to achieve this objective, and this objective here is essentially trying to reduce the value of the dollar. So let's just flip colored pens for a second do a bit of silver here. So I've got foreign exchange transactions. I got foreign exchange transactions and official interest rate movements. Now, to me, this is the easiest one because I know that if the RBA wishes to reduce the value of the dollar, it will try and decrease official interest rates. So I can just immediately discard A and B because I want this or I want this. Okay, so then I think about foreign exchange transaction. Be very careful. It doesn't say Aussie dollar. That got me the first time when I was trying to do this. So what happens is that the RBA, in order to reduce the value of the dollar, would have to do this. Sell Australian dollar and buy foreign exchange. That's what Forex stands for. So what we're going to do is we want to buy foreign currency, sell the Australian dollar. Our answer here is going to be D. And just know that when I buy foreign currency, the flip side of that transaction is that I sell Australian dollars, and the overall impact is the dollar will fall, exports become more competitive. Question 6. Residents in a country town experience a significant slowdown in the speed of their internet service as a result of a large increase in usage from newly connected households. So again, a few quick clues. What I might say is that, okay, so we're going to see a reduction in internet speeds as more people are connected to the internet. So the slower internet speed is most likely a result of, right. So let's have a look. Is it about free riding? It's not about free riding because if I am connected, that means I am paying for the service. So I'm not free riding. Is it about rivalry and consumption? Well, what we can say here is, what we can see is that the internet capacity is fixed. And what I mean by the internet capacity is not the size of the internet. It's sort of the amount of people that can access the internet in Australia. We've got a limited amount of bandwidth, speed that people can access. So the more people try and use it, the slower it's going to be. So this looks like a bit of rivalry, that the more people use it, because we are competing with each other, the slower it will be. I can see this as a possibility. Non-excludability in usage. Actually, we can exclude people. If you don't pay for the internet, you can't use it. And the internet is not a public good, right? You have to pay for it. It is excludable and it is rival. So I think B provides us with the best answer here, that if I use the internet, then that can potentially reduce the speeds that you get access to. And I think Nessa agrees with my logic here. 6B. Great. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, some of these types of multiple choice ones are tricky, and the reason why I say that is not for the information they include, but for the information they exclude. So let's have a look. There is a significant increase in official interest rates in the USA. So even before I move on, I will annotate this. A significant increase. So it says all other things being equal. If it says all other things being equal in this context, and I can see, ooh, Australian dollar, what we can start to think about is this, that Australia's interest rates are unchanged. So America's interest rates go up, but Australia's are unchanged. Now we can see here again a double-barreled situation. I'll get out my silver pen and I'll say, I think I like this one to do first, because I know that if US interest rates increase and Australia's remained unchanged, more people will want to save, put their money in America. So we will see increased demand for the US dollar. So we know that if there is increased demand for the US dollar, the Australian dollar will depreciate. So what we can say is that our options are A or B, because they say that the Australian dollar depreciates. Now we've got a 50-50 bet. I like our odds. Now it says impact on foreign exchange markets. what we know is that there is going to be increased demand for the US dollar because interest rates are higher there. Increased demand for US dollar, depreciation in the Australian dollar in terms of the US, and our answer will be A. And Nessa agrees with us here. Question 8 is a little bit tricky just because there's a lot of things to think about. So what it says is country A's Lorenz curve is closer to the line of perfect equality than country B's. Now, I can't hold that information in my head very easily. So what I will do over here is I will draw the world's most average graph. This is my line of perfect equality, right? I could use arrows and straight lines, but I'm just imagining that I'm in your position. And what I would do is, let's say, not bad. Let's say that's country A. That's closer. Then let's go here. Let's get out red. And let's say that's country B. Okay. Now I don't have to hold that information in my head. I've just got it here. And I might say, okay, that's the line of perfect equality. So then I can think about a couple of things, right? So country A would have a lower Gini coefficient. It would be closer to 0 because it's more equal. So here we go. Country A has a larger Gini coefficient. No, it has a smaller one, more equal, closer to 0. Country B has a more equitable distribution of income. No, it's further away from the line of perfect equality, so it actually has a more unequal distribution. So now we've already knocked off 2. Country A's Lorenz curve will move closer to country B if country A's top marginal income tax rate is decreased. Let's just go slow here. So what it's saying is this. It's saying that country A will become more unequal if country A reduces the marginal rate of tax for higher income earners. Now that's true. If I reduce the top rate of tax for marginal income earners, then their incomes will be higher, and that will increase inequality in the economy. So C is looking like a pretty good option. D said country B's Lorenz curve will move closer to country A if country B's top marginal tax rate is decreased. That's not true because it will be the same impact. This will make country B more unequal, so it won't move closer to country A. So our answer here is C. Let me just double check with Nessa. Yeah, we're cool. So C is our correct answer in this context. A little bit tricky. Remember, if anything is confusing, don't panic. You can always put it in the comments and I will help you out. Let's move to question 9, question 10, then we'll take intermission and we'll come back after that. Okay, so here we are at question 9. I've just gone through it because I just tried to do it and did it incorrectly. So now I'm redoing it. So no one's perfect. The question says an Australian company purchases a foreign company. So let's just follow this thought first. Can you see here? An Australian company buys a US company. Now this is foreign direct investment because they are buying the whole company. It's more than 10%. So what we can say is that FDI, okay. So what happens here is that with foreign direct investment, the Australian company is buying the US company. So money leaves Australia, which would be a debit on the capital and financial account. In particular, we know that foreign direct investment, along with portfolio investment, sits on the financial account part of the capital and financial account. The second part of this question then said that this foreign company pays a dividend to Australian shareholders. So this, what I've labeled the US company, actually it's just based in the US. Now it is owned by the Australian company, pays dividend to Australia. Okay, so we can think about that. That's an inflow. NPY, dividend coming in, recorded on the current account. Okay, so what I can do now is I can go over here. I think purchase of the company is the easier one to start with because I know that there's an outflow. So I can just get rid of these straight away because I know that the purchase of the company is money leaving Australia. I further know that money leaving Australia would come out of the financial account where foreign direct investment is recorded. Now, just to double check, I know that the payment of dividend to Australian shareholders, this part here, that's going to be a credit NPY, credit on the current account. Here I go with A, and I've dealt with my mistakes from the one you didn't see, and the answer to 9 is A. Okay, let's move to question 10. So here we are at question 10, and I found this very tricky when I was doing this because I was thinking about I really have to know in a fair bit of detail about those national employment standards. So what we're looking at here is we say Alex has worked full-time for the last 2 years at her current place of work. Full-time, okay. Under Australia's national system for determining minimum employment standards. So these are the national employment standards, the NES. And assuming all other things equal, Alex is not guaranteed. So what we're trying to work out is really what is guaranteed under the NES. What is guaranteed under the NES? So if I just quickly go here, I understand that you're not able to do this in your HSC. So I look at the 10 minimum titles of the NES are maximum weekly hours, flexible working, parental leave, annual leave, carers leave, community service leave, long service leave, public holidays, termination redundancy payment, and getting a Fair Work information statement. Okay, so these things are guaranteed. There's nothing about unfair dismissal in the NES. In fact, it's a separate set of legislation. So unfair dismissal is D. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stop here. We've done our first 10 of the multiple choice. In the next video, we're now going to do the next 10. So make sure to come and watch that one. Okay, thanks very much for watching.